Hello and welcome to LabGab, a live stream variety show that showcases events, destinations, and different talents across Second Life. I'm your host, Strawberry Linden, and today on our show we have Elizabeth Tinsley, Zander Greene, and Da5id Abbot. Welcome to the show, guys.
Thank you
Thanks.
so much, Strawberry.
Thank you.
Thank you.
It's so great to have you on. We are currently at Fantasy Faire, which features 18 incredible regions, and it started in April, but it's running until May 10th, so you still have some time to visit. And since I couldn't show you guys all of the 18 regions in one show, we have a little slideshow that's going to be going on beside us, and hopefully around the end of the show, we'll do a little bit of a tour in some of the regions. But for now, you can watch the slideshow and look at the gorgeous pictures while we chat a little bit. This is Fantasy Fair's 12th year in Second Life, and I have to say it's incredible. So, can you tell us more about the origins of Fantasy Fair, how it all started, and the connection with Relay for Life?
Well, the history of Relay for Life in Second Life, it's almost as old as the platform itself. The fair started itself 12 years ago.
Right.
Originally, we were one of the team events, and there's going to be more than 100 Relay for Life teams in any given year. But 12 years ago, two very good friends of mine and I, Elizabeth, joined us the third year of the fair, but it started with Ember Farina and Lauren Thibault and I. And we looked at what some of the other large Relay for Life event teams were doing with events like Fashion for Life and decided that we wanted to take on something of that scale. So we'd all lost loved ones to cancer, and it was a very deeply personal cause. My dad was a huge fantasy literature and film buff, so for me, the fair was a way to honor his memory. And we knew that there was no single fantasy role play community that was on its own large enough to support what we wanted to do. So the idea very quickly evolved to create a kind of United Nations of fantasy, I suppose. And that's really exactly what it has evolved to be, and raised a lot of money in the process for Relay for Life.
That's amazing. I know you guys have been raising a lot. Can you tell us how each of you are involved or how you got involved with Fantasy Fair and what are your roles in the event?
Well, I came to Fantasy Fair, I think it was 9 years ago now. It was 2011. I was Ember Farina's assistant and kind of got my feet wet and learned the ropes. And then in 2012, I became the executive director and have been here ever since. Um, Basically, I oversee everything and I deal primarily with the world builders and the sponsors and the merchants, getting them all set up and in the doors. And once I do that, I basically turn the ship over to Zander.
Well,
I see.
I'm a founder, but I never have felt like that's exactly how it happened. It always felt more like I just sort of stumbled down the rabbit hole and discovered all of this. But what I do primarily for the fair is I'm director of the fair and the Fantasy Fair Radio's programming and event schedule. So I get to oversee the full spectrum of our events and also our dedicated music stream that we have.
Nice. And how about you, David?
I'm the guy who basically looks after estate performance. I have responsibility for the ops team, store merchants, check-ins, and various things that come up at short notice frequently end up on my desk as a sudden, can you just, about 3 minutes ago.
So you're like the
That's
everything guy.
support services, I suppose is a good way of putting it. We just generally lump the whole thing under ops.
Sounds familiar, actually. So, how much money has Fantasy Fair raised so far for Relay for Life?
Well, we actually have a lot of very interesting totals. If you look at the 12-year total of how much the fair has raised for Relay for Life in that time, the number just this past weekend went over $400,000.
Dollars.
Dollars,
US
not
dollars.
Linden's, US dollars.
Nice. Wonderful. And this is
And
just this year?
no,
No, okay.
this is the cumulative. Oh God, I wish it was this year. This is the cumulative for the last 12 years. This year,
Wow.
we are already at our record high. We have never done as well as we have done this year. And we are at $55,690, which is
Wow.
just shy of 14 million lindens.
That is amazing. And you're not, it's not even done yet. You still have like what, 5 more days left?
We are not done. We have 5 full days and today, and I will put this out there. Our goal is actually to try to get up there to right around 14 and a half, 14.6. We're really encouraging all of the shoppers out there to come. The stores are all still open. There are lots of Relay for Life vendors out there, and come explore, do the quest, and shop.
Yes, absolutely. Um, so what have you found is the most effective way to raise money at this event? I know that there are several different ways that people can contribute, such as there's an auction, there's merchandise sales, etc. So what's the most effective way?
It's very much a combination of things. We started as a shopping event, and that's still very much at the core of what we do. But we have a large number of events over the course of the week. We have jail and bails, which some of your colleagues were kind enough to be thrown into a cage.
I heard.
And the Fairelanders were remarkably generous in helping get them out, especially when the bribes started appearing. Uh, Linden bribes are good bribes. We've also got generally, sort of general donation kiosks and such like. We have role play events. We have things like, where are we? We've done role play. We have dance, particle performances, that kind of thing as well. And there's even a web portal if people would like to donate by credit card, which allows them to get a receipt, which is handy
Oh,
for tax purposes. And that's all linked from the Fantasy Fair website.
wow. So that's there's an option too. I didn't know about that one. Um, there's so much to see and shop for this year. Is there like a shopping guide that people can use to help plan their visit?
There is. We have actually two different Pinterest guides. We have the
Okay.
shopping guide that highlights all of the RFL vendors on all 13 of our shopping regions. We
Okay.
also have on the shopping guide page, it links to the Pinterest. It also links to a list of every merchant that is currently at the fair, and we have over 250, close to 270 merchants
Wow.
here. And we have their Fairelands location, the plural for their store here on the Fairelands, included on that page. So if you want to go directly to a store of your favorite merchant, you can look on that list, see that they're here, and then go directly to the store that they have on the Fairelands.
Well, that's convenient.
Yes, it is. And the other thing that we've done on that shopping guide page
Hmm.
is we recognize that a lot of what is out there in the shopping world is basically geared toward women.
Yeah.
And so we have made a shopping guide mini list for men and children and another one for non-humans. So there's something here for everybody, and we want to make sure that you find that.
Wonderful. That's
The
great. And it's up right on the shopping guide page.
All of it, yes.
Okay.
If you
I've
click on the
linked it.
shopping
Yeah.
guide, yeah. If you go there, you'll see everything.
Oh, yes, I see it.
Um,
Hmm.
the other Pinterest page that we have is a guide for all of the quest prizes. We have a we have a quest every year
Hmm.
that encourages people to really explore all of the regions. And that was the first part of it. But then the second part of it evolved into a very complex story that we have. And at the end, lots and lots and lots of gifts. And we have a complete catalog of what all of the gifts are that you can receive if you do the quest. So that's the other link that you can put up.
Awesome. Yeah, I just did. I put them all. If you're watching it on YouTube, I put both the shopping guide and the quest, and hopefully my colleague will put it on Facebook, or we can do it later. And I'll actually add the links to the description of the video at the end as well. So who is involved with the event? How can other residents get involved if they want to? Because that's always a question I get from
Oh,
people.
yes, absolutely. And it's funny because I am already getting people coming up to me now and saying, well, how can I be involved next year? How can I be a world builder? How can I be a sponsor? There are so many ways to be
Yeah.
involved. I deal predominantly with world builders who are the people who come in and create the regions for us. And I start looking for them ideally maybe around October, trying to get an idea of who I'm going to have. Typically, I go to people who have already built for me and I ask them first. This year was this year was an interesting year because I had a lot of people who, for one reason or another, really needed to take a year off. And I always encourage that. I know that building a region for the fair is a lot of hard work. And I understand that it's not something that someone can always do every year. So I actually was a little worried that I wasn't going to be able to find enough region designers to make the fair that we currently have. So I was thinking about downsizing, this kind of joke. Last year we had 16 regions, and I was like, okay, well, maybe we should downsize a little bit. 16 seemed like a lot of merchants to deal with, a lot of regions for operations to deal with. And
And now you end up with 18.
I was trying to go for 12 and I ended up at 18. So that was fun. But the world builders typically come from people who have already done it, or people who have done something called the worldlings, which are like shadow boxes that we've started doing. And they're meant to be like a, a window into a possible future Fairelands. So it's a little tiny, we call them worldlings because they're like baby Fairelands and they could grow up to be Fairelands. So we see what people do there and we see what their ideas are. And then if I need people, I can go to them because I already know that they have a sense of what a Fairelands needs to be.
Yeah. So
The
that's
other,
how.
yes, go,
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
No, that's how you
that
find the builders for the Fairlands.
that's how I find the builders primarily.
Yeah.
Um, Sponsors and merchants, if you want to be involved as a merchant, the best way to do that is to join the Fantasy Faire fans group
Oh, okay.
because I make announcements when the applications open, and the applications typically open February, and we announce it in the fans group. We announce it on our website. Usually it's more word of mouth than anything once those announcements go out. I do sometimes do some personal invites. I collect names all year long from people who are interested. I try to friend them if I can, and I try to follow up and get personal invites out. That doesn't always happen.
Yeah.
But yes, that's really, if you're interested and you don't know if applications have opened up, the best time to contact me is in January, because then I can tell you, well, they're going to be out, in a couple of weeks, and to kind of keep an eye open on these different arenas, like the group notices or the website. And
Right.
it's the same thing for sponsors. Sponsors just really, we don't have an application form for sponsors. It's really just contacting me and letting me know that you're interested in sponsoring something. And what I have found with sponsors is that 18 regions isn't enough. So we end up with event sponsors. We end up with sponsors who give us matching funds for performance events where we can encourage people to donate by matching their donations. So if you want to give me money, I will find a way for you to do that.
That's great. So the best way is for them to join the group, the fan group,
Is
and
to
then
join,
just
yes,
stay
to
in
join the
contact.
fans
Yeah.
group. Yes, absolutely.
Great. And hopefully they can, maybe you can link it later in the description of the video or something.
Oh, yes, I
Yeah.
can definitely do that. And we also, I mean, I primarily work with sponsors and merchants, but Scott, Scott and David also have ways of getting people involved there. So if you aren't a merchant, there are still ways to be involved. So I'll let them talk about that.
Okay.
The events spectrum is really it's such an enormous cross section of talents and different disciplines, and Second Life offers us so many amazing ways to present events, and some of them have real world analogs and dance experiences and parties and DJ parties, live music and that sort of thing. But of course, there's a lot of things that are very unique to Second Life as well, entirely. You can't really do a particle performance in the physical world quite like we do them here in Second Life. So the range of what we do here event wise is just really represents the full spectrum of what's possible within this platform. David mentioned earlier, and it's true, that in the beginning, the fair was primarily a shopping experience, and then we had events and programming meant to draw people in so that they could come and experience a show or a concert or a DJ party, and then maybe they would stick around and go shopping, we would hope. But over the years, we've really evolved to be, I would say, as much, we're three things. We are a shopping experience. We are also a design experience. This is where you see some of the latest and greatest innovations of what is possible from a design point of view for Second Life. And then also, we have become, just as much as either of those things, we have become a place where you can experience the best of the events and programming possibilities that Second Life offers. And that event category is really exciting and really huge. We do have live music events where we have musicians who sing or play an instrument. We have those amazing dance and particle shows, and I'm a big fan of all of those. I just come from a theater background, and I love to see people working in that kind of collective, collaborative effort in a creative sense. And what we can do in Second Life with that, of course, is just visually beautiful and so compelling. We also have, as was mentioned earlier, an amazing role play series. We bring role play groups in, and over the course of the fair, they present their stories, which are broken up into episodes essentially over multiple days. And they usually start off with a big party, and they usually end with a big party as well. And along the way, we let people know what's going on with those through a series of newscasts we broadcast every day with our Fantasy Faire Radio news reports, which updates people on the latest happenings in that role play series. A couple of years ago, we also added, we thought, well, here we are in this great RP environment. Why not add RPG? So we've actually started doing tabletop gaming as well.
Oh.
And we have Dungeons and Dragons sessions. We got some, I go back to third edition D&D. So I was really excited that this year they actually started offering, in addition to fifth edition, they started offering some third edition D&D sessions. But that's not the only game that gets played. I know they did the Call of Cthulhu and a few other RPG style tabletop games as well. And then they do, along with the role play groups as well, both of those groups also do classes throughout the course of the fair. So if you're interested in getting involved within a role play community, or you want to explore what you can do with tabletop gaming in Second Life, then in addition to going and seeing examples of those things taking place, you can also go and take classes about how to do those things effectively and make the experience more fun for you. Elizabeth mentioned we do have an interactive, narrative-driven. It's what people in Second Life know as a hunt. We call it the Fairelands Quest because it's really more story-driven than it's partly a scavenger hunt in the classic SL sense, but it's very much an interactive story as well. And that story always bears some connection, some relationship to the core values you find in Relay for Life as well. So those stories are always very uplifting, very positive, and they speak to what we can do as fantasy, as a genre of literature does as well. It speaks to what we can, how much more powerful we as individuals are than maybe we at first realize. And then when you begin to form fellowships with other such empowered people, then there really is nothing that we can't accomplish. And so that's really kind of, I would say, the core value of what the quest is about each year. Elizabeth also mentioned we have an extremely popular and now very successful literary festival. We host award-winning, well-known authors this year. We had Fran Wilde, Hugo Nebula award-winning author. That was very exciting. They come and they talk and they share their thoughts and feelings about the fantasy genre. And then sometimes, as Fran did, they'll read excerpts from their works. But that also has lots of opportunities for people to not just be a passive observer of something, but actually be an active participant as well. For example, we do every day at 5 p.m. Second Life time throughout the fair. The Literary Fest team conducts a bit of a field trip, and they all go. They gather together with any Fairlanders or Second Life residents who would like to, and they go off and explore a specific region.
That's
And during that
awesome.
time, yeah, it's great. During that time, we have a DJ on air on Fantasy Fair Radio who plays a set of music that is meant to accentuate that specific region. And then people, if they so desire, they can be inspired and write their own story based upon that experience. And then again, if it's their choice, we can share those stories then on the Fantasy Fair website as well. So it's a way for people to come and make a creative contribution of their own to the fair. And then, of course, just parties, 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 parties. The Jalen Bales, as David mentioned, we lock up well-known grid celebrities in some sort of uniquely fantastical manner, and then we raise money for Relay for Life to bail them out. All told, it's about 200 people, something like that, who are who are participating and making contributions to our various event areas. And there's a page on our website that lists the organizers for the fair, and that link will show you who the lead person is for each of those event areas. And just as with the participation for sponsors or world makers or merchants, if folks are wanting to do a show for us or they want to be a DJ, they can look at that list of organizers and figure out who the right person is for which event they're interested in participating in, and then just reach out to them in the world and say, hey, I love what you're doing, and I'd like to be a part of this, and this is what I do, and how I think it could make a contribution to the vitality of the event section of the fair. So we're always looking for new people to come in, and that's one of the most exciting things about the fair from any area's point of view is, we get together and we get to see people that we know and love and haven't seen in a while. We also then get to meet new people and get more people involved. And that's one of the most fulfilling and exciting things about being a part of the fair and a part of Second Life too.
So much going on.
A
David, you
lot,
were going to
yes.
tell us stuff too?
Well, the backstage, I suppose you'd call it the backstage crew, the people in black t-shirts. We tend to find the right people to fit what is pretty much a very small and close-knit team. We're looking for people who are specifically, have a background in region management or are good at crunching data, because we handle an awful lot of the background spreadsheeting as well. So because this is a colossal event, somebody has to worry about the filing.
It is a colossal event and so much attention to detail. That's amazing.
Well, I'm fortunate in that we have Zander and Elizabeth making sure that information is all put through as they're also juggling the management side of it. So it's a reasonably simple job as long as you stay disciplined, keep practice, and that kind of thing. So people of that type, we tend to keep an eye out for them, and when we see someone likely, we sneak up behind them, fit them with a tracker chip, and drag them off with a black bag over their head.
I can't even imagine how long it must take to organize this. How much time does it take to plan an event like this?
Well, most of the people here want it to start on May 11th. Most of the people who have organized this one want it to start like March 15th of next year. So it's somewhere in between those two. Actually, like I said, the first thing I do is I start contacting designers who can build the regions. And I start putting out feelers in October. I usually get responses back in like the beginning of December. And then people actually get serious like the beginning of February, which always makes me a nervous wreck.
Yeah.
Then every year I try to be very early with merchant registrations. And this year actually I was at the beginning of February. Much before that, I'm thinking about things, but nothing is actually really coming together. If we're talking about myself and Zander and David, our planning really does. It starts we do a post-mortem within a couple of weeks of ending the fair to see what worked and what didn't and what changes we might make for next year. Then we all kind of collapse until the end of the summer. And then in September, we really start working on this again. And then starting in, I would say February, beginning of March, we get the applications in for the merchants. I start assigning and collecting store donations. We get demo stores from all of the world builders so that we can send those out so that people get a feel for the regions that they're going to be on and their stores. They can start laying things out. And then we work very closely with the lab to get the regions here, usually about the beginning of April, so that the world builders have a couple of weeks to get them built before we start bringing the merchants in. And then the merchants they had 5 days. They had 5 days this year to get set up. And part of that was because we had so many of them that to get them all checked in, typically we would do it in 2 days, and it was just like 270 people. We can't get them all in here and get them all checked in in 2 days. So it really is
months and months.
Yes, on some level, months and months. I know that in the run up, at least the 6 weeks before, it feels like a full-time job. Well, it doesn't feel like a full-time job. It is a full-time job.
Yeah. So there is a question on Facebook that came in about you, Elizabeth. So I'm just going to quickly ask that. What is in the hand of the lady in red, and how do we get one?
All right. That is actually, it is, now I need to find out what it's called. It is from a store called AII.
Oh, yes. I know that store.
She is not actually here this year, but she has been here in the past, and it's called an orb sensor. And there are several different kinds. This one happens to be the shadow, and it comes in multiple colors, and there are 3 different styles, but yes, they just kind of float around and animate around you. So encourage people to go and get these. These are really cool.
Yeah, they look very cool. I also wanted to ask about the Fantasy Faire radio. What is that, and how did that get started?
This is kind of one of those funny stories. I worked in public media for a lot of years, and then from the minute we started the fair, I really wanted to create a dedicated radio station for the fair. I wanted something that would be a soundtrack essentially to the visual experience of the fair, and that took a couple of years to figure out how to actually pull together. But the initial idea was more or less satirical, really. I wanted to know what it would sound like if you had a community licensed public radio station that was set in Middle Earth or in Narnia or something like that. But it's another one of those things that just sort of evolved. At some point, it stopped being a satire of that idea, and it actually just became that very thing. So Fantasy Faire Radio gives us the means to do that most important goal, which is to bring a sound that highlights and plays with the visual experience of the fair. We play fantasy film soundtracks, traditional world music. You'll get some pagan rock, some pirate rock in there, a lot of other appropriate styles for the genre. And we're also a source of community information. We're playing promotional spots for our various events. We air public service announcements about the vital work that the efforts that the American Cancer Society is making to battle cancer on a global level. And Fantasy Faire Radio gives us the means to do all of that, and also hopefully to create something that connects the community year-round while the Fairelands are slumbering in the mists, as we call it. We are a year-round now streaming web-based radio station, so that's something that as people miss the fair when it closes, they can still have kind of a sense of connectivity back to the community through Fantasy Faire Radio. And we'll go out and do some events over the course of the year as well. We'll drop in and have some events in different special locations. We do a lot of special broadcasts over the course of the year. We've presented a number of original adaptations of some really terrific stories, Frankenstein, and we've done Jekyll and Hyde, and we're really fortunate to have an incredible crew of people who make Fantasy Faire Radio happen as well. Elric Merlin, Caledonia Sky Tower, and then lots of people who contribute in terms of helping us create content that we air on the station as well. But for most of us, it's a way to sit back and listen and enjoy a sound that really highlights what we're seeing as we move around these extraordinary regions. Originally, we had a rock and roll station just because it did play Relay for Life information, and we thought, well, we'll just do that because at least that gets Relay for Life content in there. But it sure was exciting once we had Fantasy Faire Radio up and running to be able to provide that soundtrack to the fair experience.
I heard you say Caledonia's name. We had her actually. I had her on LabGab a few weeks ago. She's wonderful. I think she's involved in the literary fest over here. Can you tell me more about that as well?
I can talk about the Literary Festival just a little bit. Zander has already gone into a lot of detail about it, the different things that are involved in it. Caledonia was very involved with it until Zander stole her away. And has put her to work on Fantasy Faire Radio, helping him produce content, which she has done a really excellent job doing. I know she does some of the sponsor spots. She does a lot of the promos, writing some of the promos, recording promos, and she just did an excellent spot this past weekend for the live auction. And I really would like Zander to just jump in and talk about that for a second, and then I'll come back to the rest of the Lit Fest.
Sure.
Yeah, that was really exciting. And this is really starting to see the coming of age of Fantasy Faire Radio, in that we were able to present on Sunday, right before the live auction, a documentary style feature that featured the voices of three incredible professionals who work for the American Cancer Society. We had Kristen Solt, who is the managing director of Global Alliances. She oversees all of the many service and support programs that the ACS is implementing around the world. And then helping her to do that are two other incredible human beings. Christy McComb is Managing Director of Global Capacity Development, essentially helping other governments and other healthcare organizations around the world to expand their ability to respond to the cancer burden in their own countries. And then also joining them was a really neat thing. We had the Senior Vice President of Global Cancer Control. This is actually about focusing on preventing cancer from occurring in the first place. And the head of that, the Senior Vice President of that aspect of what the society does, is Sally Cowell. She's the former United States ambassador to the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago. So here we had these three remarkable people, including one former U.S. ambassador, who was able to come in and share what they do and how what we do as relayers enables them to go out and do that work. And to be able to share that information in that documentary style. If you're familiar with public radio, it's the kind of a story you'd be used to hearing on All Things Considered or Morning Edition or a program like that. And to be able to present that content, that information to this audience right before we went into the live auction, I think that was a big part of why people were so inclined to be so generous, and they certainly were. Right after we aired that feature and we started the live auction, we then had a record-breaking live auction where we raised over $2 million Linden dollars in about a 3-4 hour period. That's over $8,000 US dollars.
In 2 hours.
Yeah.
No, let's just be clear. I did the live auction, and it was 5.5 hours that I spoke. So I
spoke for
Without
5.5 hours.
I spoke for 5.5 hours. Yes, basically to myself. Because I'm on air and I'm getting chat responses back,
Yeah.
but anybody who walks by me is like, okay, she's muttering to herself. It's now 3 hours. Okay, 5.5 hours. Yep, still muttering. So yeah, let's give credit where credit's due.
That's great.
Absolutely.
That's amazing. I wouldn't be able to do it. I get tired after an hour of lap gap, so I don't know. To 5.5 hours, that's amazing. So can you tell us more about, you were going to tell us more about the Literary Fest, Elizabeth? Mm-hmm.
Yes, there's one thing that I want to say thank you about.
Mm-hmm.
It's an idea that Safia Wittershins had to do these Lit Fest tours. And what they do is they meet once a day and they go to one of the regions and they explore it. And they have a soundtrack. They have a DJ who comes in and creates a soundtrack to go with the region. And then they have story prompts as well. And so they go around really looking at the region on a level that is deeper than what the region was necessarily intended for.
Wow.
We have two different types of regions. We have shopping regions and we also have event regions. And each one of them have their particular specifications that are needed functionality wise. But what I really encourage all of the world builders to do is to create worlds, to create regions where they could imagine that people lived. There is some kind of society there. And we have simply borrowed it. So I want it to be an environment. I don't want it to predominantly be a shopping region. I want it to feel like a place where there is shopping, but there's also life. And so the Lit Fest tours do a really excellent job of getting people out, exploring the regions, which is wonderful for shopping,
Yeah.
but also gets them out to explore the layers of what all of these region designers have done, because they really do so much more than just create a platform for shopping or a platform for events to take place on. You could come here and not shop at all, which I don't encourage you to do. You should shop. But you could come here and not shop and still spend 18 days just wandering through the regions, taking pictures, meeting people, and experiencing what Second Life is capable of as far as environment creation. That is one of the things that we have here that I don't want to sound proud about this, but I am.
You should be
I think
proud.
that we have, if not the best builders in Second Life, certainly among the best region designers in Second Life working for this event. And so when you come to the fair, you see the best of what Second Life can be.
This is true. I've walked around a little bit and it's amazing. We just shared the link to the Literary Fest section on your blog.
Wonderful.
So you guys can click over, and I think there's a schedule or something that they can follow with the Lit
There
Fest.
is
Yeah.
a schedule, and the Lit Fest very much still has a lot of programming going on. They have poetry readings and open mic sessions. They have prompted writing sessions still planned. I know that they have a couple of talks going on. They still have the Lit Fest tours going on every day, mainly because we have 18 regions in 18 days. So they couldn't stop. They needed to keep doing them.
Yeah.
So still a lot of events, and they do have their own event calendar, so you can check and see exactly what's going on.
Perfect. So you were talking about the quest. Can you share a bit more about what that is and how people can participate?
Well, the quest is a fairly significant feature of the fair these days. It started back in 2011 when Alia Baroque did a serial story-based hunt on his region of that year, which was the Mists. And that kind of grew a little. And then in 2013, Zander and I worked together on a Machinima series, and he said, "Hey, why don't you come over and write a hunt for us?"
Mm-hmm.
And my background is actually in professional writing. I'm a novelist and scriptwriter. And I thought, okay, let's see what we can do. So we ended up with something of an epic, what I occasionally refer to as the giant radioactive beast that eats regions, because it comes as two paces, or two phases. That's the word I was looking for. In the first part, you will tour the Fairelands in search of various items. So it's a really good opportunity. Rather than as a scavenger hunt, it's more like an opportunity to experience the fair and the Fairelands in a much more intimate kind of way. And then once you've got through that, you've got all of the pieces you need, you can then enter the quest region proper, which this year is Queen's Garden. And that is the second part of the quest, which is where things get seriously epic. And we've been very fortunate over the years in that we've actually managed to introduce all kinds of interesting elements. You know, we have things like full motion video for dramatic cutscenes. We now actually, in fact, this year we've introduced an old idea of mine, which was to have instances. So there's a particular point of this year's quest where you can be entirely on your own, even if a dozen people are doing the same stage of the quest at once. So it's you and the experience and nothing in the way of that, which is working incredibly well and we're all really very proud of.
Sounds like a lot of fun too. You can do it with your friends and all that.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And it's
you've got the community side of it, and you have people asking for help and trading hints and such in the fans group, and we are very fortunate in that we have an exceptionally good team working this year to make it happen, and people seem to be absolutely delighted with it. So that's a real joy for us all.
It's also something that really helps us to create a kind of mythology around the fair itself. There's a mythos of the fair that explains what the Fairlands are and how they come to be each year, and the important role that Fairlands Junction plays as a returning region each year. The Fairlands come and go, but Junction abides, continues to come back. And within that mythos, Junction is not just a place, there's a consciousness there, and it's Junction that is deciding which of these magical worlds that exist, in theory, out there in the world. Junction brings them together, bends space-time, and for the fair, unites these ordinarily disparate worlds into a single chain of regions. And overseeing the interpretation of that, you have the figure we call the Bard Queen. Her role is to interpret for us what Junction has done in any given year and helps us to understand that. And sort of as a conflict element, the core of any drama, of course, is there's a conflict. And certainly as relayers, we understand what the overriding conflict is we're working to overcome, and it's the struggle against cancer. Here in the Fairlands, that is personified in an entity we call the Unweaver. So always at the heart of this interactive quest experience, you have this community effort to thwart the machinations of the Unweaver and support the Bard Queen in her role to interpret and to speak for Junction to all of us. And I think it's wonderful to have Da5id, such a great writer, and to have these organizers, Ash Sinclair, who produces the quest for us each year, with an extraordinary team of builders and scripters to make what is a mind-bogglingly complex technical challenge to make it work well, and to do so in a way that, again, speaks to those core values of Relay for Life. It's one of my favorite things we do at the fair.
I do want to apologize to the people watching on the stream. I'm experiencing like a lot of lag at the moment, and I was trying to cam around, and it's just killing the camera. And I apologize for those watching that. Hopefully, I can fix it. So there are 18 regions to explore. Are there themes for each region that people should be looking out for?
Well, let me think about that. We do. We have a lot of different themes here. We have your traditional fantasy type regions that are, you feel very elvish or fae based. Luna Fae, which is the region that we're on right now, one of the defining pieces of it is there are these little fairies, little animesh fairies that are floating all around the region. And it's a moon garden. And so they're here basically tending to the life that is growing in this moon garden. We have right next door Auxentios Pass, which is a steampunk region. It was created by Faust Steamer, and he is a first-year builder for us this year. And he came in
Oh, his
and
stuff
made,
is
oh my gosh,
mind-blowing.
yes, he made this amazing region for us, and it's different because we have a steampunk element here, but often the merchants who are steampunk that come, they don't really know where to congregate. They end up on these, kind of woodsy, elfish regions, and they're like,
Yeah.
yeah, okay. But this year, because Faust was here, we have this absolutely amazing um, steampunk region. Uh, he's done a winter region. It's a cavern or canyon that, to me, is very much in keeping with the style of like the Golden Compass.
Hmm.
And go ahead. You
No,
were taking a breath, and I was.
no, I know his work, and I know it must be. I'd love to see it. I would. Do we have time to maybe teleport
I
around?
would say yes. We actually probably have time to walk over to it because it is literally right next door.
Sweet.
Um,
Do you guys want
but
to walk around a bit, or is there
yes,
anything?
yes,
Let's
let's
do.
go ahead and do that.
Okay. I am lagging, but I reduced my draw distance. Somebody yelled at me on YouTube. I heard you. So let me see if the reducing of the draw distance. I know I didn't want to reduce it too much because I do want to show the builds, but I'll reduce it to like 90 something, and hopefully that'll help with my lag because the lag was absolutely.
It's hard,
I
yes. When you
know.
come here, you really need to be very conscientious about your scripts, your HUDs, everything like
Your
that. And
wings.
yes, and it's very difficult because everybody who comes, they want to show off their
Yeah,
best fantasy finery. And we certainly appreciate that. We don't want a whole bunch of people coming here basically in, noob outfits
right.
in order to be able to walk around. So it's very much a balance.
Hmm.
And that's another thing, and I know David can speak to this, is what Faust did on Exentios Pass. It's like one of the most impressive region builds I think that the fair has ever seen, as far as the script times
Hmm.
that come off it. David, do you want to say something about that? I really can't get more precise than that.
We've been very fortunate over the years to have a couple of builders who really do nail the efficiency aspect of their builds, and Walton Faust is very much one of them. Um, I talk about things like texture density, video RAM, poly counts, and various other bits of arcane voodoo that make things work better. And the combination of scripts, textures, the actual construction of the mesh has really been excellent. Not just in Auxentius Pass, to be fair. There's been a lot of really good work done over the years in terms of fair construction on that side of things, mainly because we're aware that this is a very dense environment. There are a lot of textures
Yeah.
between vendors and all the rest of it. So
Everything is
everything
gray
we've
to
been
me
doing,
right now.
yeah, well, give it a
Hopefully.
moment. It
Yeah.
won't take long for orcs to come in.
Okay.
Um, but yeah, we've been working very, very hard, and the world builders themselves have been extremely good about this in finding every possible way, from textures to script loads to all that sort of thing, to make sure that the average fairgoer's experience is as good as it possibly can be.
Yeah.
There are regions this year that before we opened, I was seeing script times for the entire region of under a millisecond, which is pretty profoundly good.
We have
And
an
we've all
interest.
kind of. Go ahead,
No, no, no.
Strawberry.
Go ahead. No, what were you saying?
I was just going to say, as we all just kind of fell asleep as David was talking about milliseconds, and that's why it got really quiet.
That happens a lot.
There's actually an interesting question on YouTube right now. They're asking Eric Mondrian. He's asking how do you see the fair in relation to real life fantasy conventions and the advantage of doing an event in event like this in SL. And he's also curious if they know whether the fair is known at all within those convention circles, like I guess in the
No,
physical world.
no, I don't believe it is, but it should be. Um,
Absolutely. Yeah.
I do think that there is what we have seen this year because of COVID-19 and people being, told to stay at home, not being able to get out and interact and socialize so much, is that we were able to have this as planned. And
Right.
especially when looking at the Relay for Life calendar of real life events, like 75% of those real life events have had to be canceled for this year. However, we didn't have to cancel. We didn't have that limitation on us.
Right.
Um, and we actually, I think, as a result of the fact that people are needing to stay home and practice social distancing, have had record numbers of people coming here. And that has resulted in part in the amount of money that we have been able to raise for Relay for Life. So
So
I
that's why
think,
this year has been really going
yes,
well.
I
Yeah.
really think so. And I think that the strength of Second Life is really being demonstrated right now because events that are going on in Second Life allow communities to come together and spend time together and socialize,
Yes.
where people are really missing that in real life. So it's not just about the fantasy fair, but I think in general that Second Life is really experiencing some really beneficial outcomes from something that is affecting us all very,
Yeah. It's
very,
interesting times for sure.
yeah.
Something we started talking about very early on in the planning. Once we knew that we were looking at this global pandemic as a feature that we were going to have to allow for, we all started cautioning ourselves not to use that term social distancing, because this is the power of this platform.
Right.
We can be socially connected even when we are physically distanced, and we get to work with people here. And one of the reasons why the fair focuses on the global work of the American Cancer Society is that the fair and Second Life at large is very much a global community. So our ability to work with one another at great distances is something that we've been gearing up for the last, well, since the platform really was born, certainly since Relay for Life began, and certainly since the fair began. So we can remain connected, and we can work together. We can collaborate in this marvelous collective creative fashion, and we can do so despite whatever distances may separate us in the physical world. So we're saying this year that we are socially connected though physically distanced, and I know the
Right.
society has expressed incredible gratitude to us as a community and to Second Life as a platform for the ability to roll through with just business as usual, whereas, as Elizabeth said, so many other groups have had to step back.
Yeah, people were saying on YouTube as well, it's really just physical distancing that people are doing. You don't have to do social distancing because of
That's
virtual
right.
worlds like Second Life.
Yeah.
Everybody here looks so amazing. I was just camming around at the people standing here, and I got all the textures to load. This build is phenomenal. I can't believe it. It's just amazing. He always does wonderful work.
He really does. And we are incredibly fortunate to have him. And I think that we have him now going forward for the rest of his
Awesome.
life.
Don't let him
Um,
go.
Yeah, we've already secured the ship.
This
I
is great.
I know that we're winding down on time. I would really like to show one
Yes.
more place before we go. It's going to be a TP. Can we do
Yes.
that?
Yeah, for sure. We
All
have
right.
lots of time. Yeah, go ahead. Teleport me
Okay.
over.
Yep.
I want to see more. This is wonderful. Even if we go over, I'm okay with going over the noon mark. If you're okay, a few minutes, that's not a problem. I'd rather to be able to show, especially all these amazing people standing here. Everybody looks wonderful. I don't know if they can hear us. I'm just waiting for Elizabeth's teleport. Or did you send me? I think you sent me a landmark.
I did, but I can get you.
Oh, wait. Did you send me a teleport right now? You did. Okay, hang on.
I did.
Okay.
Yes.
It didn't come in, I guess. There we go. So we are at Where are we
We
now?
are we're at the Memorial Hall on Fairelands Junction.
Okay. Let me see if I can get it to res for me like the other place. Oh, it's coming in quickly now. Wow. Is this where near the landing point?
This is
Yeah.
the landing point is just one hallway over.
Okay. So it's very easy to find for those.
Yes, and
Yeah.
actually we can walk through that if
Yeah.
you'd like to,
Yeah, for sure.
because one thing I'll tell you a little bit about Fairelands Junction. I think that Zander might have mentioned this, and it looks like Zander might take a minute to get here. He's stuck mid TP.
Okay.
But Fairelands Junction is the one region that always comes back. And even though it comes back every year, it's always different. And the designer who does Fairelands Junction, Saiyge Lotus, she's done it for the last 9 years. And so every year she comes up with a new idea for Junction, for the environment of Junction, but its function is always the same, and that is to be the arrival point, the linchpin of the Fairlands. The mythos that we have is that Junction always pulls together the other regions based on what the Fairlands community needs in any given year. And I think that is so true this year because, like I said, I really was thinking about trying to downsize and have less regions. And what I found was, because of what is going on in the world, unexpectedly going on in the world, we needed more regions. We needed more space for more people to be here and be part of the Fairlands community. So I think, I like to think that Junction kind of influenced that. There was this magical force that said, when I was thinking, when we were talking about downsizing, it was like, no, not really, not this year.
Yeah.
And, that's
It's needed more
making
this
up
year, I think, than any other
making
year.
up
Yeah.
a story to kind of fit the circumstances. But I do really feel like that influenced things. And where we're standing right now is one of the most important features of Junction. Not only is it the arrival point, but it is also our memorial for the Fairlands. And this space, this huge space, is full of candles that have been lit and dedicated to people that have survived or been lost to not only cancer, but anything in the world that has taken a loved one away from us.
Yeah.
It's our way of remembering them, and I think that this is very much the central theme of what the fair is. We are here in order to make it so that we don't have to light candles for people anymore.
Right. It's
And a
beautiful.
lot of people choose to do that in celebration also of those who have come through that cancer journey successfully, thanks to the support of the American Cancer Society. We've got people here who relay with us who are themselves survivors. I know one in particular who is, and he'll be the first one to tell you this, is alive today because of a research program that developed a treatment that was funded entirely by money raised by Relay for Life people around the world. So to see that, that effect of that collective generosity of all these relayers, and to know that you're a part of that is just an extraordinary feeling.
Yeah. For sure, and it's beautifully done. She did a great job. Sage, you said?
Yes,
Sage
Sage.
Lotus, yeah, be wonderful. It's really. I'm just been camming around. You what said we were going to walk through a certain
We
area?
can, yeah, we can
Yeah.
walk through here, and we um, will see the portals. And what Sage does with
Oh,
the portals is really interesting. Every year, she creates a representation um, for each one of the regions. And those are the portals that she makes people can then walk through and get to the regions all around the Fairlands.
I think I lost you. Let me see if I can
Well,
find you again.
yeah,
Oh, there you are. Okay.
but she does a
Oh,
really
okay.
great job.
So
And
these portals will take you to all the 18 regions.
yes,
Okay,
yes.
awesome.
And she was really happy this year because she figured out how to actually make them work with an experience so that you can
Oh,
literally walk into them and be teleported directly to the region itself.
and this is the
And
landing spot?
yes, yes,
Awesome.
this is the main landing spot for the Fairlands. And so
Wonderful.
they come in and this is what they see, basically portals to all of our worlds.
I love it. Thank you so much. I really appreciate you guys taking the time to talk to me today and show me around. Was there anything else that you wanted to show me or take me to before we?
Well, I'd love to show you the entire thing, but
Yeah,
that would take another 3 hours. So
probably, yeah.
I just really encourage everybody to come. We're open until Sunday,
Yes.
and it would be absolutely wonderful to see you. Come and shop, come and explore, come and quest, and come and party.
Yes, for sure. All the links will be in the description of the video. I already have the destination guide link and their website. Their website has all of the information as well. So for sure, check that out. And I'll put some more links in there to like the group and any other thing that you think should be in there. I appreciate your time today, Xander, David, and Elizabeth. Thank you so much. Um, and thanks to the viewers for watching. Appreciate that. Don't forget to visit Fantasy Fair. It ends on May 10th. And of course, everything's in the description of the video. Anything you want to say before I cut the stream as David or Xander? Or...
I guess I would just like to say that I appreciate what everybody has contributed, and there is nothing that I appreciate more than the incredible generosity of the community and what they bring to it, not only in love and support, um, but just being together and supporting, World Without Cancer.
Absolutely, for sure. I don't know, Xander or David, you're still with us?
Yeah, there's one more person or group of people that we really need to thank,
Hmm.
who are the lab.
Oh,
One of the reasons that we keep the place going is that we have a great, truly magnificent liaison in Midori Linden from the Land Ops team. And
yes.
she and her colleagues do everything that they can to make sure that we in Ops are able to make sure that everything we can do gets done to make sure that the fair is as pleasant an experience for everybody as it can be. So the lab really knocks it out of the park for us with this one. It's great.
And just having this platform here at all, the ability to do this, to exist in a world that we build together, that's an incredibly powerful thing throughout the year. And to be able to come here and decide, here is a virtual world in which we can be anything we want, we can do anything we want. And 750 people will work on the fair this year to make it happen. And we've already had about 20,000 unique visitors stop
Amazing.
by and spend some time here. So to be able to have this platform as a place to do this and to do this together is an incredible gift, and I think represents the best of what Second Life was intended to be from the very beginning.
Absolutely. It's wonderful. Great job, you guys. Congratulations on such a successful fair this year. Hopefully, even more in the next few days. Thanks again to the viewers for watching. Keep an eye on our blogs for any announcements about LabGab. And remember to stay safe, stay home, and stay virtual. Take care, everyone. Bye.